Welcome, everyone. This is the Book Talk Nation event with Amy Plum and Josephine Angelini. This will work a little bit like an author event at a bookstore. Amy will talk about her book after the end. If you haven't purchased after the end, you can do so at booktalknation.com or right here on this video page, and Amy will sign and personalize it for you. Books of Wonder will fulfill all of the orders and ship them to your door. The sales for these signed and personalized copies will close on May 16th, so you'll want to make sure you get your order in by then. The books will ship in early June. There's a chat box right underneath this video window, and you can use that chat box to interact with Amy during the video chat and answer your questions. In about 20 minutes from now, Amy will answer the questions from the chat and also answer some of the questions that you submitted ahead of time when you RSVP'd for the event. Until then, I'm going to hand it over to our interviewer tonight, Josephine Angelini. Her debut series, Star-Crossed, Dreamless, and Goddess are international bestsellers and have garnered the praise of various major publications, including the Los Angeles Times, and have twice won the Reader's Choice Awards in Germany. So welcome, Amy. Welcome, Josephine. And Josephine, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Most importantly, I'm Amy Plum's best friend, and yes. I get this. I get ARCs. You see that? I get signed ones. This is what y'all want. Okay, so Amy, I have some questions for you.
Shoot, Josie. Go right ahead.
Okay, my first question is, what gave you the idea for the book?
The idea for the book. I get my ideas in little kind of like strange brainwave type of things. So for my first series, I got a sentence. I had a sentence in my mind, which was 10 days after my 16th birthday, my parents died in a car accident. And that kind of created everything for me. But with this book, I had just an image of this girl in the middle of the wilderness, the Alaskan wilderness, in snow, dressed in furs, kind of survivalist, and kind of out there hunting for food. Just a really kind of strong female heroine character. But at the same time, I knew that she was now. She was in the now. It wasn't like a futuristic type of thing. It wasn't in the past. It was right now. And so for me, I had this character. I could see her. I knew what she was doing, but it was a mystery for me. I had to figure out why a teenage girl would be living out in the middle of the wilderness nowadays.
Well, it's obvious you really knew your heroine because she's such a clear character. I mean, she comes across really strong right from the first page.
I'm glad she did, because she was the person that started the whole story.
Yeah, you know her like right off the bat. I felt like I knew her like right in that first opening scene. So my second question is, I know it's so weird to be formal with you. I know. It's so strange.
And for once, we're not talking about Princess Bride or being a Jedi Knight. So
it's a rare day. Okay, question number 2. Explain the magical system that you developed and how you made it your own. Because it was very unique. Like, you had a very specific magical system that I don't think I've ever seen used in YA before. And maybe you could explain a little bit about the Gaia principle and how you made it, how you changed it so that it would fit with your story.
Right. Well, in fact, thinking about Juno, the main character that I just described, and she and her people living off of the land. I wanted to come up with something that wasn't already used. I didn't want to kind of take, for example, Native American mythology, because that would be something that came from the land. I wanted to have something original, so that I wasn't having to borrow from anything else, basically. So for me, I came up, I did a bit of reading. I wanted to base it on the Gaia principles that kind of the environmentalists came up with in the 1960s. And it was a lot of environmentalists as well as scientists as well as philosophers who all got together and kind of came up with this whole theory of the Earth as one thing. It's like the mono
a superorganism. It's a superorganism.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the term that I was searching for with my 1 o'clock in the morning in Paris mom. So Earth is a superorganism. That's the whole kind of basis of the Gaia theory. But at the same time, I wanted to add something in that would create kind of a magical current that ran through the whole thing. So you've got the superorganism, but how do all of the parts of the superorganism communicate together and bounce off each other and yeah, make this group? So I used, and this is where I got all nerdy, I used the Jungian theory of the collective unconscious. And that basically that everybody is connected. So I made everybody is connected and combined it with everything is one from the Gaia theory and made up this kind of fake word, the Yara, and that basically is the currents that run through all things.
And by doing that, by combining those two aspects, I think a lot of people who are trying to write are really going to, or they're looking for their own way to develop a unique magical system, are really going to love this process that you're working out. You know, you took it and you made it your own by coming up with something that was over here and something that was over there. You put the two of them together and then you translated it in your own way. And so it's something that feels really intuitive, like it feels familiar when I read it, but I know I'd never seen it before.
Oh,
so
good.
It was like really, it felt really unique, but at the same time I was like, oh, I get it. Like it wasn't hard for me to figure out.
Great.
So just like your process of putting those two disparate principles together, I felt really worked for this story.
Oh, good. Well, for me, it's always important. I don't like to make something so magical that it's unrealistic.
Right.
It's really important for me to kind of base something. If it's going to be based in the here and now and in this world, I want it to make sense. So I'm glad that it came across as realistic to you.
Yeah, it was almost like intuitive, and there was like a minute where I was like, oh, Gaia principle, is this going to get preachy? But it never does. It's never like
it's not supposed to.
It never, like, not 1 second was I like, oh my God, if we see dying polar bears, I'm going to freak out. But that didn't happen. You didn't give in to that. You know, you used it in very much a plot-oriented way instead of like standing there shaking your finger at people and we've got to be good to the earth. It was like, no, that wasn't it at all. You used it to move the story, which I felt was really important.
I didn't want that, and I also didn't want. Miles refers to it. I think I can't ever remember which things I do in book 1 and which things I do in book 2 because book 2 is already written. But in somewhere, Miles refers to it as her religion. And she makes it very clear that it's not a religion to her. For Juno, it's a way of thinking. So for me, it's almost like Buddhism in a way, in that it's more thought-based, and even though it's spiritual, it's not a religion. It's not. There's no God. There's no. Even though Gaia is important to them, it's not. It's more. It's all about the earth.
Right, and there was a lot of respect for the earth. But it wasn't like thou shalt not.
No, she's out there killing caribou. Right. Giving it and eating it. So yeah, they're not
total badass.
So definitely.
Okay, so having said all that, it's a very complicated, a very original magical system. And how long did it take you to get it worked out and to layer it in with the plot? Like. You know, because you can have a magical system and you can know your story, but having the magical system move the story along sometimes takes a little bit of time. Did this happen right away for you? Or?
Well, we've talked before about how you are a plotter and I am a pantser.
Yeah. So
when I write, I fly by the seat of my pants. I don't plan it ahead of time. And that makes it really hard when you're having to world build. So for me, I still don't understand everything about it, but I think that's okay, actually. Oh, I see your cat there in the corner of the screen.
She's such a ham.
She's photo bombing our Google chat. She's right there. Sorry. Anyway, I'm very easily distracted by shiny things.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
So yeah, for me, oh no, now I've completely lost my train of thought.
No, you were talking about plotters versus pantsers and how you're a pantser and you're still working out your magical system and your world building.
Absolutely. So for me, it was like my last series with the Revenants. I didn't understand everything about it when I set out writing it. And even at the end, I didn't understand absolutely everything. And I think that's okay, because if it's complex enough, even the world builder, the god behind the scenes, doesn't understand everything. I'm not omniscient. So for me, I still don't understand everything about it. I am writing book 2. I've written it. I'm on the second draft, and there are still things that I'm having to work out about it. But as long as it makes sense to me, and as long as it all kind of weaves together, then it's true. So for me, even if not everything is worked out, as long as it feels true and I'm telling the truth as far as it goes, then I feel good about it.
Right. Well, it's a very cohesive story. Like when I was reading it, even though you are a pantser, and I can't say that I condone that type of writing, there are no holes in it. So the story works very well within itself.
Right. It probably helped me to talk over it with you in Las Vegas over drinks.
Oh, so much happens in Las Vegas.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So my next question for you is, how would you categorize this book? Because when I was reading it, I was like, wow, there's this really strong love story that takes a while to develop. It's not like an insta-love book, which is one of the things that I really respected about it. It's got this strong love story. It has tons of action, and it's also sort of this adventure book. It's like the book never stops moving. Like from the beginning to the end, there's another thing that our poor heroine has to go through and sort of figure out. And I was like, so for me, it was like, what kind of book is this? It's not dystopian. Is it supernatural romance? I don't know. Is it an action adventure? So my question for you is, how do you, like when you were writing it, did you say, I want to write X type of book?
No, and I think that's a problem. It's a problem. It's a problem for some people, because I didn't set out thinking I want it to be magical, and all I knew is I didn't want to have to write as many kissing scenes as with the Die For Me series. That was the only thing I really set out to I was like, okay, I'll make them hate each other for a long time so they don't have to kiss very much.
Right.
But no, I did not have something in my mind. I knew that it was fake dystopian, in that I knew that Juno was going to believe that she was living in this post-apocalyptic world, and that was a lie, that it was set now. But besides that, I didn't go about thinking, oh, I want to write an action adventure. Oh, I want to write a romance. And it's funny because that people kind of don't know what to do with it. Like they're not quite sure what shelf to put it on. Does it go in action adventure? Does it go in magic? There's a little bit of magic. There is a little bit of environmentalism, I suppose. There is a little bit of romance, and a lot more in the second book, but still not too much kissing. I keep them apart just to avoid.
So it heats up a little. Is that what you're saying?
It does heat up a little bit, I have to confess.
Excellent.
But I would have to say that if I had, and it's also a road trip book, because I actually had to go on a road trip myself to write a lot of the descriptions. But I would categorize it mainly, if I had to give it like a over 50% categorization, I would say action adventure. I would say it's probably like 70 to 80% action adventure, and then the rest you can divide up into all the other little categories.
You know, I kind of like that you can't categorize it. I think that a lot of writers are starting to get pigeonholed into, well, this one writes this type and this one writes that type, and I don't think readers are actually looking for that. I think that they're looking for a complete experience. They're not just looking for, oh, I only like dystopian books, or, oh, you know what I mean? It's like, I think that a lot of people are going to like this book because it sort of has a little bit of everything. It's like, you know,
and that's what I've enjoyed hearing from other authors, actually, who've read the book. They're like, I don't know where to put it. I'm like, oh, good. They're like, it's not like anything I've ever read. I'm like, oh, good. But at the same time, the bookshops and and my publisher, they were like, well, you know, what do you want to categorize it as? And I'm like, do we have to put it in the box? And unfortunately, yeah, it does have to be put in the box. So I'd push for it to be more action-adventure than anything else.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there is a strong love story in it. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about now. So who's Miles?
Miles was an afterthought. I tried to write the book without a boy. I actually did. And with my first pitch to my editor, I had Juno, I had her clan, I had them out, you know, in the wilderness. I had the whole deception about World War III, and I was like, oh, good, you know, I'll get away from doing the whole romance thing. And they came back to me, and she's like, but where's the guy? I'm like, oh, there has to be a guy. Okay, there can be a guy. And then actually, once I added the guy, I'm like, of course there's a guy. There has to be a guy.
There has to be. Like, she can't talk to the Raven through the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, it just can't happen.
Very important. But she can't, yeah. You don't want to kiss a raven. No.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen.
And you can't argue with the raven. Arguing is very important in this book. But yeah, Miles basically, and I didn't actually even realize this. I didn't plan it like this until I got to book 2. And I started writing down her characteristics, Juno's characteristics, and Miles's characteristics. And they're opposites. They are so opposite. Not just what they come from, because Miles is the son of a pharmaceutical company CEO, rich kid, LA, spoiled, getting in trouble in school, got kicked out of school right as the book was starting. It's not just their situation. When I started making a list, like Juno is responsible, he is irresponsible. Right. She takes decisions. People make decisions for him. Everything was so opposite, and I didn't actually plan it like that, but that's just how it worked out.
Yeah, so, and I felt he was a really atypical hero character, which I loved. I found it really refreshing. But at first I was like, I don't know whether to punch this guy in the face. Like, I could understand why Juno would want to hit him, like, really badly.
Yeah.
And I was like, this kid, he needs a spanking. Like, he really does. And I felt like you took a risk by writing him, and he has a really strong character arc. Like, the changes that he goes through as a character are just as rich as what Juno goes through. I mean,
good. I'm glad that you see that. And again, it's hard for me to remember what's in book 1 and what's in book 2 because both of them keep changing so much. From not only from what's going on around them, but from bouncing off of each other. So
okay, that leads into my next question perfectly.
Good. You didn't plan this ahead of time, obviously.
Yes. Oh, I wrote everything down. Yes. My next question is, so what do we have in book 2? Because, and I just want to let readers know this. At the end of book 1, I have to admit, I wrote Amy a rather annoyed email saying, where's the rest of the damn book?
I'm like, there isn't any.
I was like,
it's a cliffhanger.
I was like, okay, is he dead? He's not dead. What's going on?
I can't tell you. Yeah.
What's going on?
What happens in book 2? Okay, I had to tell people I have a cliffhanger in my first series too, in book 2 of my first series. When people would get back to me saying, I can't wait a year to know this, I have to say, you have to trust me. I might be evil, but I am not completely evil through and through. I am not Darth Vader, although he's not. But yeah, no, they're yeah, close.
Love it.
That much of the dark side in me. Yeah, in book 2, Miles is in book 2. Okay, there's my big spoiler.
Good. Good.
Not that much of a spoiler. But yeah, both of them keep on developing, and both of them develop in a way that your heart will be cheering for them. I can say that. I was cheering for them as I wrote it. As you know, I don't know what's going to happen as I'm writing, and I was like, yes!
You
Yes!
never have any idea. I don't know how you do that. Like, you don't have any idea. You're just like, I don't know what's happening next. I'm like, wow.
I do it like that or I get bored. But yeah, no, I was so excited for both of them in book 2 because both of them keep on developing and things just get more exciting and people get stronger than they were before. Everybody gets stronger. While, in fact, they have to grow stronger through their weaknesses. And that's what I really like about book 2.
Good. Well, I better get that second draft because I don't know if I can wait for it to come out in the ARC form. That's all I'm saying.
It is coming soon. There's Dave.
I think it's about time for us to take a few reader and audience questions. You can go ahead and type your questions for Amy in the chat box, and she will answer live. We've already gotten a few, so I guess we'll start off with the ones we have received. The first question comes from Nicole, and she wants to know, Amy, how many words do you write a day? Does it vary? Is it always the same?
Well, I might sound completely anarchic with my actual writing process, but that means that I have to be very rigid with myself as far as word count goes. So first draft, I write 1,500 words a day. And I send, this sounds completely insane, but I send what I have written every day to a certain person. Her name is Claudia. She's a friend. And Claudia, if I do not turn that 1,500 words into Claudia every day, she writes me and guilt trips me. So I have accountability. Second draft, I try to do double that. And so basically I'm getting first draft done in about 3 months' time.
Wow.
Yeah, but there are lots of mistakes and lots of changes. So, yeah.
That's just part of the creative process, right?
For me.
Our next question comes from Autumn. She says she's trying to. Her son likes books like The Hunger Games, Harry Potter, and she's been looking for something for them both to read together. How would you help her sell this book to her son to read?
Crossbows. I would sell it by crossbows. Let's see. And tell him there's not a lot of kissing. That will definitely help. I showed the ARC, the advanced reader copy, to a few teenagers here in Paris, one of whom was a 15-year-old boy. And I help out at the American Library of Paris with their teenage writing group. So he was a part of that. He's like, please let me read your ARC. I gave it to him. He read it in one night and came back and was angry at me about the cliffhanger. So that was from a 15-year-old boy. He totally ate it up. He actually, the next time he saw me, he was on to me again about it. What happened? What happens in book 2? I'm like, no spoilers, no spoilers. So tell her there is a precedent. There is a 15-year-old boy in Paris who loved the book. There is a lot of action. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a car chase. There is a car chase and a shooting. So please tell Autumn that if that would help, she can definitely use that with her son.
Sounds good. Lily writes, how much research do you do when writing this book, or writing any book for that matter?
Okay. Well, this was very different from my Die For Me series. The Die For Me series was set in Paris, and I used elements that I really knew, like art, architecture, that type of stuff. I did no research, absolutely no research for the Die For Me series. After the End is set in, it starts out in Alaska, and that is the only state in the United States that I have not been to. I have been to all of the other states. So I actually was doing a lot of research on Google Maps. I was looking at wildlife, flora, fauna, the time the sun rises, the time the sun sets. This one took a lot more research, but mainly for the environment and the survivalist type of themes. I am not a survivalist. I do not know how to make a fire.
So she knows where to find a good hot chocolate in Paris, though.
Yeah, and that is my survivalist tip. Yeah. Not talk me down in the middle of the wilderness. I will die. I will be the first one to die.
This kind of, in a little way, relates to another one of our pre-submitted questions, and it's if you had been in Juno's position when her people were abducted, would you have done what she had done or something different? If so, if you would have done something different, well, what would it have been and why?
Okay. Well, okay. To answer that, what happened was, and this is at the beginning of the book, so it's not a spoiler. Juno is out hunting caribou, comes back to her clan. They live in yurts in the wilderness in Alaska. Comes back and they have all been kidnapped. They've all disappeared. She hears and sees helicopters taking them off, and has to find them. So basically, what this reader is asking is, would I have done what Juno did, which was to chase after them, to try to find them, to try to go out of the territory that I had always been confined into, to find them. And I have to say, yeah, I would. I'm pretty chicken about a lot of things, but my curiosity would have overcome my chickenness, and I would have gone after them. So I probably would not have felt like Juno felt and thought that I could rescue them, because I probably would not trust my capabilities to actually rescue them, but I would have chased them down and tried to figure out what happened to them.
The next question comes from Diana. She writes, when you write your characters, do you have real people in mind who you're basing them off of, or do they come from just from your mind?
I do not base them on real people. They come, and I actually talked to my teenage reading group about this. My characters come fully equipped with their suitcases packed. They've got everything with them. I do a little bit research on names because they don't come with their names. Once I find the name, I know that it's for them. But I do have to research the names. But I know what they look like. I know who their parents are. I know if they're funny, if they're not, that kind of stuff. I might have to think about things like what everybody always says, you need to know what your character would eat for breakfast. Okay, that might take me a few minutes to come up with. But I know what their character is like, and I know what they look like pretty much right away, and I don't base them on real people. Maybe the character, their personality and character, I might draw on some people. Like Tally in this book, Tallulah, is based on me.
Well, that was the next question, was what character from any of your books do you relate most to, which you just said, but why is that the case?
I don't know. It's definitely not an ego thing. I'm not this egotistical kind of like I must insert my personality into my books. I don't know. I just happen to turn up at some point. Usually as the weirdest person in the book. So and in this case it is Tally. Yeah, in the first book I wasn't quite as adventurous about going away from what I knew. It was the first time I had written fiction. This is with the Die For Me series. And so you can find little bits of me scattered between the grandpa, the grandma, the sisters, I'm kind of there all over the place because I was too scared to let go of what I knew. In this one, I don't know anything. I really started from scratch on all of the characters. I did kind of put myself a little bit into Tally's character, but to kind of, in fact, to kind of ground the whole thing, so it wasn't just flying up into space and into like complete fantasy in my mind. But yeah, she's the one that I would associate myself with the most in this book.
Well, we have time for, let's see, one or two more questions. Stephanie writes, just in our chat room recently, since you don't plan your stories out all the time, do you ever have writer's block, and what is that like?
No, I never have writer's block. Because my gift, I guess, if it's not advanced planning, which it's not, is having lots of ideas. And so I always have a ton of ideas. I never am at a loss for ideas, but I am at a loss for how things work. And there's this Latin phrase that I can't ever remember, but it's basically to work things out by walking. And that is what I do. I work things out by walking. If I get stuck on like how something's going to happen or how things fit together, I go outside and I just start wandering and it comes to me. So yeah, I never get blocked for too long. I think the hardest thing would be when somebody else points something out to me that doesn't work, and then I have to figure it out. Which Josie has done for me from time to time, and which my editor does. And at that point where I am shown a big hole and have to figure out how to make it work, I think that would be the hardest part of writing the way that I do.
Well, thank you very much. That brings us about to the end of our event tonight. Before I let everyone go, I just want to remind everyone that the books are for sale. You can purchase a signed and personalized copy of After the End right here on this page. Those sales will close tomorrow night, so make sure you get your orders in by then. And Amy will sign and personalize the copy for you, and then Books of Wonder will ship it right to your door. We'd like to give a big thank you to Books of Wonder for hosting the event, and thank you to everyone who joined us tonight and submitted questions, and thank you to Amy and Josephine. It was such a pleasure having you join us tonight on Book Talk Nation.
Yes, thank you, Dave, and thank you, Josie.
Thank you, Amy.
Thanks everyone for joining. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.